Lewis here. Do you want me to try and give him a yell, Patricia?
Yes, if you could, just maybe just degrees only, because we'll need to get moving. So go ahead, Ron, and I haven't got any copy on you. It's really weird to Fiji today, but certainly Trevor is hearing you. Go ahead, Pilgrim.
Contessa, but I know you got a copy. You want to give him a yell, Ron?
It's, whoops, I better go back to the streaming page here.
I've actually got my list of the islands to have record.
I've got this to my dashboard. Anyway, good morning to the streaming people. We're just trying to pick up a boat that's coming from the Marquesas called Contessa, and Alan is a single-hander on board. So we like to look after the single-handers, of which there are quite a few this year, believe it or not. Quite a few. And some of them are going to be heading back to New Zealand shortly. In fact, Miss Murphy is heading back today. And by the way, if you are listening on streaming, you all have to thank Scallywag, Paul and Gloria, for getting the volume up. Boy, if you people don't complain.
I think we might be struggling here. You run walls at 2-1 south and 1-5-1-5-6 west, is that right? Okay, copy that.
Yep, 2-1 south and 1-5-1-5-6 west. That'll keep us going. So, yeah, it's not very good listening, but well done, Ron, for being able to pick that one up. Was there anything else, Trevor? All right, well, good morning, everybody. Sorry about the delayed start here, and welcome back to the week. Patricia and David, Gulf Harbour Radio here, on live streaming as well as on the radio. And I was just telling the streaming people, thanks to Scallywag, they now have a better volume. We've been streaming for 2 years and no one has said anything, but we got a request to increase the volume, and so that is now increased. It doesn't look as if we'll be able to pick up any of the boats coming from way to the east there. We've got Y2K and Obiwani heading towards Palmerston. The boats heading to Lifu on the Down Under rally have had a bit of weather to deal with overnight, a few problems there, but all going well, and Eagle's Wings are already there. Hove to outside and report 12 knots from the east-southeast, and the swell is less than half a metre, but of course they're on the leeward side there of Lifu. There was a report from Avalon, who are pretty close behind, and they have got 15 to 18 from the southeast, having gone through a bit of a trough last night with up to 30 knots. So they had about 2 metre swells, I think, when they were out there, or out there at the moment. So it is a bit interesting. So Lifu is actually just on the edge of a trough, looking at the satellite picture. The rest of Newcastle has just sort of got on and off cloud, and so you guys should be all right, but you're still just on the edge of that, and the slower boats will be dealing with it as we speak. Is there anything urgent from anyone before I get on to news? Nothing heard. Well, our Prime Minister is in New York this week, so as a new mother, Prime Minister, etc., she's evidently hot news, but there is an awful lot of other news going on in New York this week. President Trump is there. He's going to address the General Assembly tomorrow, Tuesday. Well, I suppose it's still Sunday in New York, isn't it? Sunday night. But anyway, Mr. Trump is going to be there, along with Prime Minister Ardern and a lot of other people. Mr. Trump addresses the UN on Tuesday, as does the Prime Minister of Iran. So, and then Mr. Trump is going to chair a Security Council meeting to discuss the nuclear issue in Iran. So he and President Rouhani should have an interesting time in New York. The other presidents there are from Korea, North and South, France, and the Prime Ministers of Israel, Japan, and the UK. So it's going to be a very, very busy week in New York. But Prime Minister Ardern has got her engagement book filled up on television and meetings as well. So that'll be interesting. Okay. Doctors here, and this is of interest to us here particularly because our neighbour went into hospital with a bowel problem a week ago and picked up one of these deadly bugs. It is spreading in New Zealand. They call this superbug CPE or CBE or CPE, something like that, carbapenemase. It evidently produces something that stops antibiotics working. And it is developing in New Zealand, particularly and is a problem for people that have visited China and India or have come from China and India. It can just sit in the bowel and the gut and cause absolutely no harm. But if it gets into the bloodstream or urine, it can be life-threatening. And poor old Murray down below us, he certainly looks like death warmed up at the moment. He's back home on a really, really strong augmentin regime and has lost a lot of weight, but he's still with us. So I guess they caught it in time. But more news from New Zealand. A bit of a bad weekend in the mountains on Saturday. A man hiking the Central Plateau area, which is a great walk for those of you who are really good hikers. In the summertime, it's a great walk, but these group were doing it in the wintertime, which it still is, and there's a lot of snow and ice around, and he fell into the Crater Lake and did not survive. And there was an American climber down on Lake Aspiring, Mount Aspiring, should I say, Mount Aspiring. He was a skier, and he slipped and died there on Saturday as well. So not a good weekend for those on the mountain. I didn't give our weather today, did I? Anyway, our weather today here, just talking about weather, it's 80% cloud cover. It was 100% before, and we had rain, but the rain stopped. It's back to 13 degrees. Sorry about that, folks. 7 knots from the southwest and a bar of 1012.2. We're evidently going to have a pretty chilly week. But we did have a very nice weekend, so that we're not complaining. All right, the last thing on my news is for you golf fans. Tiger Woods has made an absolutely remarkable recovery. He's at a PGA tournament in Atlanta, and he's 3 shots ahead. He was 5, but he's now 3 shots ahead. And I suppose it's not over till the fat lady sings, but boy, he's playing some magnificent golf again at the moment. I think he's ahead of Rory McIlroy, isn't he? Can't remember. Anyway, that's that. I wanted to leave some time, a few minutes, because we've had a few requests, really, for help from people who have not done the New Zealand Passage before. And David will be talking about the passage conditions for those that are leaving today. There is a passage. It's not perfect, but then there's not going to be any perfect passage. For all the times we did it, we only had one perfect passage. So there's a lot of compromising going on, and David will talk about the conditions that are going to be around for those that are leaving today. But as a non-meteorologist, I wanted to say a few words on it because sometimes it can be a bit mind-boggling. There's so much stuff around and there'll be so much talk about it, and it is confusing for people that don't know some of the complicated words. So I thought, well, what I would do is just go through what I look at. And I know I've got an expert on board, but still it's very useful to be able to understand what's going to go on. So it's not rocket science, but there are a lot of things. And you really need 2 of the papers that are on our website. If you go to www.ghradio.co.nz, the one that you really need to study is Sailing to New Zealand. I know there's a couple of others, Sailing from Tonga, Sailing from Newcastle, or whatever, but just have a look at the Sailing to New Zealand if you don't want to get confused. and also go to the radio and comms section and pull out the how to get the most from the GRIBs, because armed with those two, you really should be able to work things out. And as far as I'm concerned, I just look at what, David will probably come up with, oh, this looks all right to leave. And I look at what time it's going to take us to get to New Zealand. We usually work on 160 miles a day, but I work out how long it's going to take us to get to New Zealand. And the most crucial thing for me is what is the weather going to be like when we arrive in New Zealand, and that's really important. Then I look at things, the features that we might confront when we are on this passage. Are there going to be fronts? Are there going to be, is there a low, or will a low develop on the back end of a high, as sometimes is the case, and you can pick that out from, the isodars on GRIBs. Just what are the features that I don't want to see on a trip to New Zealand? How many days of headwinds, and are the headwinds going to be revolting, 30 knots, or are they just sort of going to be in the 10 to 12 knot bracket? So once I've done that and I've satisfied myself that, this is likely to be doable, I then sort of fine tune it. I look at the GRIBs. We get the GRIBs if we're planning a passage 10 days out, and we keep getting them 10 days out. And what we do then is look at exactly where we will be with this passage plan of 160 miles a day at our course. What latitude will we be every day at noon? And then I look at what the winds and the seas are doing every day at noon. And, if there's a sustained period of headwinds, then I'll say, shoosh, not for me. But if there's only a couple of days of headwinds, then I sort of take that into consideration, and I look then at adjusting the subsequent days as to where I'm going to be, because probably I won't be at 160 miles a day. But what we do is we absolutely try and do the passage plan. So if the engine has to go on, it goes on rapidly. If our target speed drops. So then we look at that and pretty much look at the entire trip, make the adjustments that are necessary, and then decide, can we cope with that? There's always going to be a compromise. And you just don't want to compromise on the major things. You don't want to deal with the subtropical low forming. You don't want to deal with a southwest gale at New Zealand. So those things get wiped off and may be a breaker for that particular passage. The other thing you can do too, there's a lot of Kiwi boats out there that have done this passage an awful lot of times, and they're very experienced. But make sure you pick a boat and a couple really on a boat that's similar to yourselves. And the reason I say this is that, there are some Kiwi boats where the wife flies home and the husband gets in a few mates, and they'll leave on a particular date regardless of the weather, because the mates don't care about the roughness and the mates might have to get back to work. Those are not the Kiwi boats that you might want to talk to. But there's dozens of other Kiwi boats, and off the top of my head, there's Pilgrim, Ron and Cheryl, there's Toranui, Graham and Lynn, there's Billamy, Trevor and Jan, Obsession, Lester and Lisa. These people have done this trip a lot. They are very intelligent about it, and I'm sure, without even having asked them, that they would want to share their knowledge if you happen to see them in the anchorage waiting to go. So, just talk about it with people that know what they're talking about. Don't get paralysis analysis. And just go through, again, just download that Sailing to New Zealand paper. It's all got very basic words in it. And if you need to, get back to us to get any clarification. If people have done the work, and that's the objective of the sessions that we have in the morning, our idea is to help you make the decisions. And even if after that you decide on a router, then go ahead. The router will take some of that work off you. But this is a passage that you need to do some work. It's not just, take off from Mexico and flop across in the light trades to the Marquesas. This is a passage, and it's only a week that you have to do some work. And even if you get a router, you'll need to carefully go through what they come up with and get a router that's going to give you more information as the passage goes on. Because as you know, every day listening to David, weather changes rather quickly here in the South Pacific, so you need to keep up to date with things. All right, I've had my bit. What we'll do now is we'll pass over to David, and if you have anything further to put your mind at ease on this passage, then by all means contact us. Here's David.
Right. Good morning, everybody. And Tricia, thank you. That was very, very good. And it's a situation where I think if you're careful, most everyone does not need a router to get to New Zealand. Sometimes people use it as a crutch. I would prefer to see it that way, where you do your own analysis, and then if you want to use a router, just sort of use it to confirm what you're looking at. But please pick somebody that knows something about the Southwest Pacific, somebody that's working the Caribbean, who has not been here. It's not going to be the same as somebody who is a router that actually lives in the area or in Australia or something of that nature that knows what they're talking about. And if you decide that you want to do it yourself, passing your plan by us is not a problem. We always are willing to look at your plan and to give comments on that. And as Patricia said, we've done it dozens of times. Can't remember how many times. So let's look now at the passage that we've got for a number of boats that are heading to New Zealand today. And from what we've heard, there's quite a few that are heading, mostly from Fiji, it sounds like. So we'll look at the synoptic picture. And by lunch, our eastern high that we talked about on Friday, when we chatted last, that's still with us. It's a 1030, 1030 millibar. And right now it's sitting out there at about 150 west. So it's about the longitude of French Polynesia, but it's very strong and active. Now, the depression from Friday that was over New Zealand has moved to 165 west. So it's gone east and taken a lot of the fronts and troughs with it. But there is another depression that lies over New Zealand, and that one is sending up a series of troughs and fronts northward. And we got one this morning. Got a bit of rain out of this and a little bit of wind. It's not bad now, but there'll be another along shortly, I'm sure. Now, the Australian high, the Oz high, has intensified as predicted. We talked about that one on Friday, too. And it's going to lie southwest of Tasmania, very strong at 1038. You heard that right, 1038 millibar. Now, this high is going to be the main player in this passage to New Zealand. Normally, we get a player of some sort. Usually, we get more than one, but in this case, we get one major player, and that is this high. By Tuesday, tomorrow, it will have ridged all the way over toward Tonga, even though the center is just south of Oz itself. Now, by Wednesday, the center broadens out, and it lies in the western Tasman, still ridging east. The central pressure now, though, is going to be about 1026 millibar. And that's what happens when they start to grow in size, geographic size. They tend to drop in pressure a little bit, and that's what this one's done. Although 1026 is still a very strong anticyclone. Now, assuming a passage time of 7 to 8 days, arrival in New Zealand is going to be roughly the 3rd of October, which is Wednesday. And by the way, what I'm giving you now is sort of how you should be looking at things. Now, the high looks to be slow moving. You look at your grids, various grids, don't just stick to one, and take a look at that high. Well, that high does seem to be very, very slow moving. And by the 3rd of October, it may lie just to the east of East Cape and still fairly strong, looking at about a 1028 millibar. And again, this is model data looking at quite a ways, so things can change, but that's what it looks like now. So the arrival winds are going to be more than likely northeast, and that is almost a perfect wind direction for arrival in New Zealand. Now these winds are going to be feeding a cold front that should be in the mid-Tasman on the 3rd. And of course, when you see northeast winds in an anticyclone, then obviously you're on the western side of that anticyclone. So it's almost done with as it heads east. But those northeast winds are excellent. Now, departure Fiji today should find about 15 knot winds out of the southeast. But by Wednesday, about 20 knots as you get further south. And I'm afraid there's going to be about 3 meter southwest swells for this particular trip. About 3 meter swells. There's some very deep depressions down in the Southern Ocean, and they're sending up some pretty large waves from the north. Now, 3 meters, for those of you that aren't too used to the Southwest Pacific, isn't that big of a deal. We're used to looking at 2 to 3 meters almost all the time here. But it's how much wind behind it is what you care about, and whether that 3 meter is breaking on the top, and when it does that, then that's going to slow you down a little bit as the boat slams into that breaking wave. Now Thursday, everyone's going to be roughly about 26 south, and at that point expect southeast winds about 20. And I would say Sunday will be looking, winds from Fiji to 30 south, let's put it that way. So if you were to look at Fiji to 30 south, that's where we've got quite a bit of wind, 20 to 25 knots. Now, everybody should be south of 30 south by then, or at least at 30 south, but hopefully south of there. If you're not, if you're just plugging along, you're going to be in some fairly strong southeast, east-southeast winds. Now that wind direction is not bad, but the wind strength is fairly strong. But hopefully, though, you will be beyond that. And the high center at that time is going to be north of New Zealand. And within that high center, you're going to have fairly light air. So from Sunday to Tuesday, the arrival date, the going is going to be much better. Light air going northeast is pretty much what's going to happen. And again, a very nice arrival into Opua. So the question really is, are you willing to do a bit of bashing for about 5 days or so? Because those southeast winds are going to cause you to be fairly hard on the wind. Now, the obvious track to take when things are looking as consistent as they are now is to obtain a little bit of westing to ease the bash. Now, a waypoint to the west of 175 east could do it for you. And once that your yacht enters that area of lighter air, because you're getting closer to the middle of the high, it's at that point that you can alter course to New Zealand. And as the wind starts to back very slowly, in other words, heading from southeast to east-southeast, east-northeast, then your course will change accordingly. And the only problem with this idea, of course, is the Southwest Sea. It looks like it's going to be southwest for that entire trip. But again, as Patricia said, nothing is perfect. But this is one particular passage where it doesn't look like you will encounter a front. That's pretty rare to get a trip like that. And that is exactly what it looks like at this point. Again, things can change, but at the moment, that's what it looks like. All right. That's enough of that one. And we'll now take a look at the islands, looking at Tonga, where we do have a weak trough that's running through the group. So expect cloud and some scattered showers there. The airports report this morning, calm and Babao, scattered cloud, temperature 19 and dew point 19. That means if you're up there, you've got very wet decks, so you can get that mop out and clean that boat. So 100% relative humidity when that's the case. And the barometer, if you want to check, 1012. The high is southeast 10, scattered cloud there, and the barometer 1013. And Tongatapu, southeast 10 as well, scattered cloud, and barometer 1014. And by noon, expect southeast about 15 knots, and I think the same for tomorrow. Now, a weak trough does lie over Fiji as well. There are breaks, though, looking at satellite imagery. Most of the cloud is running northwest to southeast, exactly the opposite flow to the surface winds. Now, that, of course, those clouds are tracking the winds that are at 850 and 700 millibar. Now, this trough looks to intensify a little bit. So tomorrow should see a little bit more in the way of cloud and showers, and probably continuing into Wednesday as well. Now, if you remember, we picked this up on Friday. We gave you a little bit of a warning about this. Well, the models are still saying about the same thing, so fairly consistent, which is what we want to see, a consensus in the models over a 3-day period like that. That's pretty good. The winds will be mostly southeast, 15 to 20, and more or less the same on Tuesday. And of course, winds are always stronger in the gusts, particularly in the showers, where you have your downflow winds. And again, those are winds at the 850 or 700 millibar level that are rushing down to Earth. Now, cloud bands are quite evident over Vanuatu as well. There actually is a trough that's running from the Solomons to the Santa Cruz Islands. That sort of splits. It continues the split. Part of it goes to Vanuatu and the other part of it goes to Fiji. So back to Vanuatu, you could expect southeast winds, I'd say 15 to 20 in the northern areas and about 10 to 15 from the Fa'afafine down to Anisha. And roughly the same thing tomorrow, although up in the banks to the north, we could be looking at 25 knots, a little bit more air up there. And then 20 knots from Santo down to Erromango, but lighter air for Anisha. And over there in Newcal, shows scattered cloud on satellite imagery, quite a bit of strato Q, and that cloud is typical of cloud that you find in a ridge or an anticyclone. Now, the cloud is moving in from the south as opposed to the cloud that's up in the Vanuatu area. By lunch, expect southeast, well, in the southern lagoon, probably 8 to 10 knots in that category, partly cloudy as well. Tomorrow, southeast about 15 for the southern lagoon, and the same for the loyalties, but there's a pretty good chance of showers in the loyalties tomorrow. Just partly cloudy for the lagoon, I think. So not bad for Newcal. And that's pretty much it. Anybody with any questions or comments, come now. And those of you that are on Passage, we would appreciate staying in touch with us. Hopefully you will. And then give us your conditions, and we will match them up with what the models have to say. And the people that are listening will, I'm sure, find that quite interesting as well. So here's the boss.
Yeah, absolutely, because there are people that may have looked at this particular passage and decided no for various reasons. So absolutely interesting. We've helped you all year with weather, and now it's your chance to give a little back so that people can learn a bit more by sitting and looking at what you're getting day by day. In fact, Kindred Spirit are leaving today for Australia from Newcal, and it looks like easterly winds according to Willamette, east-southeast, so that's not too bad a start. They waited for those stronger seas to calm themselves. All right, are there any questions or anybody else that wants to let us know they're out there? We've actually got Elbe, funnily enough, Elbe are going in the opposite direction. Elbe is a big vessel that has quite a few people on board, 12 people. They don't need to worry about weather because they're going to get weather regardless, because their speed is about 4 knots on a good day. But they are heading north from Tauranga. No idea where they are at the moment because they're probably still in my skip at 30 degrees, which is where I start to hear people on this frequency. But anyway, there's a few boats moving around out there, so keep a good lookout, everybody. Any questions? Oh, Sarani, we've barely got you today, Alison. Fiji is not coming in at all. But go ahead, we'll see what we can pick up. Public holiday today in New Caledonia. Thank you very much. I wonder what the public holiday, what's the date? Don't know what the public holiday would be today, but anyway, it is a public holiday. So anybody that wanted to leave New Cal today would have had to have got organised on Friday. All right, thanks for that, Alison. Yep, looks like it's a reasonable day on Grand Terre, but the loyalties have got a bit of trough still nudging on their eastern flank there. Thank you for that. Yeah, there's quite a few holidays coming up, and for those people that get the Bob Graham, I think he's detailed all of those on the Bob Graham of, I think it was last week. Haven't checked this week, but anyway, it was last week. So depending on what country you're in, just make a note of that, because there's nothing more annoying than getting all ready to go and finding that closed up shop. And there are a few holidays around the October time frame. Okay, thank you for that, Alison. And I didn't hear anybody else. Mind you, we're not hearing anybody too well today. Is there any relays from anybody else? Please call. Nothing heard, and we've got a lot more sunshine now than we started with, although the southerly is not exactly very warm and pleasant. We will be back again tomorrow, everybody, at the same time. And good passages to those that are heading off today. Cheers, everybody. This is Gulf Harbour Radio. Frequencies all yours. I'll just have a look at any questions on here. Oh, Muscat Cove, 108.
Good morning, Good morning, Trevor. Hi, Jan.
Well, she should